Howdy folks, Lisa here at EverythingIsALie, back again at the Seven Hills. Today we'll continue investigating the lands around the Buckland Hill Reservoir, formerly known as Seven Hills, and hopefully finish off what I started in Seven Hills Part 1. You might want to watch that first if you've missed it, link below. I'm really still unsure what exactly this place was, but I'm 100% sure that something big has been covered up here. Back when I first started looking at the quarrying done around Perth suburbs, I was expecting perhaps that a few original old world structures might have been buried in the limestone around here, as they appear to be in a couple of other areas along the Perth coastline. That was back in September last year. It was also around that time that I watched a video series on YouTube called Skeletons in the Cupboard, addressing the red-headed population of New Zealand and their history in contradiction to the Maori peoples being the original New Zealand settlers. Controversial, yes. In part 1, at around the 44-minute mark, under the heading of the deliberate desecration of the dead, Noel Hilliam discusses several names and places that I can't even pronounce, but basically he was explaining how back in 1861, somewhere on the North Island of New Zealand, the bones of an estimated 60,000 non-Maori skeletons were removed from a cave and taken away in sacks to a nearby fertiliser plant to be turned into fertiliser. Then, as I researched a bit further into Buckland Hill, where the Latron Battery is now, I find that Donald Pugh quotes the area as referred to in Noongar legend as the gateway to the spirits of the dead. This was a bit of a goosebumps moment. Now, without further information, I'm not willing to confirm or deny that statement, but when I realised there was a fertiliser works founded nearby all this quarried land, I did get a very uneasy feeling about the land having previously belonged to the University of Western Australia. It wouldn't be the only time a major university has been involved in an archaeologic cover-up of some kind. Stick with me today as we look at what evidence remains. It's far more of a labyrinth than a rabbit hole.
Wake up and listen.
Okay, so here we are back at the Grove Library. We looked at this photo last time. I'll just quickly run over the text for us. Mosman Park, with its unique geological profile and position along the Swan River, offered limestone in abundance. With easy transportation along the river, limestone remains the raw material for the manufacture of quicklime, calcium oxide, slaked lime, calcium hydroxide, cement and mortar. Pulverized limestone is used as a soil conditioner to neutralize acidic soils, that's agricultural lime. It is crushed for use as aggregate, the solid base for many roads, as well as in asphalt concrete. Quarrying operations began during the mid-1800s. Now this is a different date again, and lasted in one form or another up to the 1960s, transforming the landscape along the way. Originally known for its Seven Sisters Hills, just one remains today, Buckland Hill, with the quarry reducing and modifying the topology of the suburb. The quarry, one of the first in WA, extended from the south of the jetty to the Chine, and its stone provided the foundations for many of Perth's significant buildings. So we looked at the lime kilns last time. 1850, largely utilised convict labour and sourced from the cliffs surrounding Mosman Bay, with stone transported to Perth on sail barges. When Western Australia's convict era came to an end with the cessation of penal transportation in May 1865, convict labour diminished, but prisoners serving out their sentence at Fremantle Jail were deployed up to 1870. So stone was also quarried from the western face of Buckland Hill. This stone found its way into road construction, many fine buildings, or was sent to the goldfields at Kalgoorlie. It's a long way to ship stone. I'm sure there's stone out there. The Eastern Railway and Fremantle Harbour Trust also used the material to construct Fremantle Harbour and the fishing harbour. Fragments are all that remain of the old jetty where the boats docked to fill their holds with stone. By 1899, 2 quarries were still operating in the area, and stone from these was used to construct Glyde Street. The amount of viable stone quarried steadily declined as local complaints about the erosion of the landscape gained traction, and by 1904 both quarries had ceased production. Smaller quarries remained over several decades, one owned by a well-known local figure, Mr. Kieswetter, employed over 100 men. I haven't been able to find anything else about him. By 1910, the road board considered the lime kilns significant enough to connect adjacent roads. Note, up until 1910, there were no roads to them then. With the subsequent construction of Bering Street in that year, by all accounts, the work was hard on both labourer and dray. What happened to the trains that we saw? In 1936, the quarries near Palmerston Street were sold to the emergent Colonial Sugar Refinery, who only utilised part of the existing quarry, predominantly for dumping ash. This pattern continued under subsequent ownerships until 1953, when the ground was levelled. Other ventures continued in Mosman Park with usage by furnace and smelting companies. However, by 1963, the demand for limestone had declined and all activity ceased. The land was subsequently reclaimed for residential purposes. So the references for this are Coalbatch, Sir Hal. This was a commissioned work by the government of Western Australia, and printed by the government printer. Coalbatch himself was a former politician. Tuterman, if I'm saying that properly, hopefully, Elizabeth Tuterman, wrote the main history that town of Mosman Park relies upon for their history in 1991. I'm not really sure who she was, but it was only written in 1991. Moving on. Okay, and because I haven't seen any good drone footage, we're just going to have to try and get a little bit of a glimpse of how it is from here. So you can see there's a ridge along there. This is cut out. This is cut. Now, are any of these natural ridges, or are they all quarried away? I believe it's virtually all quarried. So this is where the battery is. There's a lot of cut areas through there, and the same with this. So for all intents and purposes, this seems like 2 hills now. So to get from one to the other, I sort of went down and down and down and walked through the park and then walked back up again. There were originally 7 hills. Now they call this basically the one. But then how much higher did it go? And yeah, where was that obelisk at the time? Okay, I've got this older version of the Register of Heritage Places from the Heritage Council just to get the important bits about the battery. So it's situated in an attractive large public open space with native vegetation and few obvious above ground built features. Its historic value was the site of the Leighton Battery played a significant role in the military defence operations of Western Australia during World War II, supposedly. It's part of the area popularly believed to have been explored by Willem de Vlaming's party in 1697, and in particular the underground tunnel complex is an example of technical achievement during World War II. I'll go straight through to, where are we? Physical evidence. This is what we're here for. Leighton Battery is a 7.4 hectare area of land on the western slope to the west of Buckland Hill. It is part of an area of public open space and includes the remains, mostly underground, of a World War II artillery coastal defence site. To the north, east and south, the place is flanked by residential subdivisions developed within the last 10 years. So this is in 2007. To the west is Stirling Highway, the railway line in a wide railway reserve, Curtin Avenue, Leighton Beach and the Indian Ocean. The place, being elevated, has panoramic views to Rottnest and Garden Islands, Fremantle Port and the Perth city skyline. These views and the physical prominence of the site are of significance in the original selection of a battery location. Nothing to do with what was already there. The limestone hillside is vegetated by native shrubs and ground cover plants, mostly recent plantings. Limestone retaining and landscaping walls provide some structure. Concrete walking paths connect Leighton Battery to the surrounding public open space and residential areas. A bitumen access road links the car park and the northwest corner with the command post in the southeast corner of the site. Most of the historic built structures are underground. Structures visible on the surface include the concrete entrance, the upper part of the command post, the 2 concrete and brick entrances to the tunnels, the tops of the 3 tunnel shaft, the observation post window, the concrete roof, a brick structure known as the radar hut, and 3 gun emplacements, 2 guns indicative but not original, are located at the site. The 2 tunnel entrances lead to a complex of tunnels and rooms extending approximately 100 metres north, south and 60 metres east-west. The tunnel entrances are constructed of concrete and brick and are generally accurate reconstruction of the original entrances, which were bulldozed in 1979. Entrances are fitted with steel doors. The south entrance accesses a small foyer in which the controls for the modern electrical and ventilation equipment for the tunnels is installed. Rough in situ formed concrete steps lead down to the tunnel complex. Here the delineation between the original and the reconstructed masonry and timber elements is clearly evident. Most of the tunnels and rooms are on an essentially common level, but the eastern section, including the observation post and the associated restrooms, are at a higher level. Hello, Min. Please join us. Hello. You're in the way. You're in the way again. You're going to sit and purr while I finish, are you? Okay. Where did I get to? I don't even know where I was up to. Most of the tunnels and rooms are on an essentially common level. I read that bit, but the eastern section, including the observation post and associated restrooms, are at a higher level. In general, the tunnels and rooms have poured concrete floors, brick lining walls and chara plank ceilings and support posts. Shafts for the ammunition, ventilation and escape are either brick or timber lined. Some are now sealed at the top, while open shafts have modern whirlybird vents. The construction materials and methods appear essentially domestic in nature, although the workmanship is skilled. The external brick walls of fired red clay bricks are mostly laid with the 3 courses of stretcher bond with a 4th course of headers called English Garden Wall Bond or American Bond. Now don't forget it this time. Brickwork within rooms is generally stretcher bond, but in the former magazines it is English bond. Most corner elements within the tunnels are truncated with the use of bevel brick specials. So those are bricks specially made for the corners. You wouldn't think that would be commonly done for a military installation. Mortar of a grey cement colour is finished flush. The former magazines have vaulted concave ceilings of cement rendered brick. The brick walls are in excellent condition for their age and situation. Few bricks show signs of spalling. In many areas, salt has formed on the bricks or mortar but does not appear to be causing serious damage. The brickwork feels slightly damp. 2 major cracks are apparent in the brick walls. One crack is just east of the stand easy room number 1 in the corridor leading to the observation post. The other crack is to the west of magazine number 2. Brickwork, particularly at tunnel corners, has physical damage suggesting bullet damage. The ceilings are formed of jarrah planks, either spanning the width of the tunnels and rooms supported by the brick walls, or supported in the middle by jarrah posts and beams. Planking is lapped over at the tunnel junctions. Remnants of the battens used to keep a bituminized Hessian lining in place can still be seen in some areas. Generally, the timbers throughout remain in sound condition with little bowing, splitting or deflection. There are some signs of previous termite damage, of dry and damp rot, of fungal growth and of fire damage. This damage appears to be localised to a few areas, particularly where water has penetrated, possibly due to vegetation. Some timber components have been replaced. For clarity, the numbering system used in the plan attached, I don't know if there is a plan attached, produced by the Royal Australian Artillery Historical Society will be followed here. Let me see if I can find that plan. Okay, so hopefully you're looking at the plan as I describe. Number 1, rubble-filled tunnel, previously an excavation entrance. This has not been cleared, but it may be in the future. Observation post number 2. Concrete ceiling and floor, painted brick walls, recent aluminium framed windows and metal security shutters, concrete siding, instrument plinths intact, view impeded by limestone wall and vegetation, photographic displays, panoramas of and from the place. The rooms close to the observation post are believed to have been stand easy rooms, one for males and one for females. One room has been set up with 4 bunks as an Australian Women's Army Service room. Number 3 is stand easy room number 1, semi-wall division, remnants of bunks, photographic displays of conservation works, recreation of typical observation post set up in alcove to the east. 4 is the first aid room, original concrete stretcher table, first aid displays. Number 5 is the escape tunnel, closed at far end. This section of the tunnel is unlined limestone. A diorama has been set up depicting drilling methods used during original tunnel construction. Plants, roots and associated water penetration are clearly evident. Number 6, tunnel entrance number 1 leads out to partially reconstructed 6-inch gun emplacement. Magazine number 1 is at 7. It has original Kookaburra frieze in cement above one of the doorways and dated signatures in cement render. The associated ammunition hoist shaft contains some original windlass equipment but relocated for security reasons. Number 8 is the projectile store. It has been set up as a small chapel in memory of fallen service personnel, specially made altar and pew. Number 9 is the artillery stall, painted walls, timber door jambs, timberline ventilation shaft to the east, artillery plotting equipment display. Number 10 is the stand easy room number 2. 4 of the original 12 bunks have been reconstructed. Displays relating to personnel and their equipment. 11, magazine number 2, corner masonry detail to facilitate flash-proof lighting, diagrammatic displays, ammunition hoist shaft to the south, and 12, tunnel entrance number 2, current principal access to the tunnels. Continuing on, the command post is a semi-subterranean structure of concrete with off-form concrete walls, roof and floor. The original external doors are steel and the reconstructed windows are steel framed. The concrete steps lead down to a large main room which is used as an exhibition area with photographs and diagrams of World War II coastal defence of Fremantle. Both 6-inch gun emplacements have been partially reconstructed, the northern one having survived more intact. Of the 3 5.25-inch gun emplacements, only the northern one has been conserved. The centre one remains buried, and the location of the demolished south emplacement is no longer within the site boundaries. The conserved gun emplacement is circular, set into the ground, and is constructed of concrete with the steel holding down rods still set into the mounting plinth. A concrete structure of underground rooms, including engine room, 2 small rooms, a passage, and entrance steps, connects to the 5.25-inch gun emplacement. Here's a quick view of that gun emplacement from 2017. Thank you to James's drone for this one. The radar hut is a small brick building with a steel door and no windows. Steel steps access the flat concrete roof of the hut, which is paved in irregular decorative stone with a mosaic gun motif. There are metal rails around the roof. The site includes 2 guns. A 6-inch barrel is mounted on a concrete pedestal at the north 6-inch gun emplacement, and an anti-aircraft gun is positioned to the northwest of the tunnel entrances. Neither are original. There is an engineering report that might be helpful if I could find it. I will just note at the end here, Don Ray is in the process of searching for a copy of an image which was produced by a private firm circa 1997-98. This image, an aerial shot, shows the underground tunnel system, including a tunnel which apparently extends out to the west of the site under Stirling Highway. A copy will be sent to HCWA, Heritage Council. Interesting. This photo on the wall inside, which I couldn't get a good image of, shows the 3 gun emplacements that they've just been talking about in that report. But then are these 3 others over here? Or potentially even more. So this area, this whole area here is now housing and completely gone as far as the battery is concerned. I can't find any other version of that image. Okay, that's all we need from there. I just want to note there too that the big guns were over there on Rottnest Island. They were 9.2-inch guns. If you want to read about those, pause now and I'll move on. Okay, so I've got some construction images of the battery from the Australian War Memorial. I won't go heavily into them because that would largely be a waste of our time. There's a construction image, and there we have it. There are internal, external. They're building something here. It's impossible to tell what. Are they new bricks? Are they old bricks? Why is that cut that way? I can't tell you, folks. Largely, I'm going to say they did something. They found something and they did something and they turned it into a battery. How much of it did they build and how much was already there? We'll look at some of that. This fascinates me. I don't know what the heck that is, but it reminds me, looking at that, of an aorta or something. And that's an interesting, looks like a bit of a hole down there. So I was just wondering if this was a wall that they built, or if something has grown on it, or if they've put plants there for camouflage and this isn't cut out right but it's framed up. Are we looking at an old mine here? Was it something much more complex? I don't like this one. This one looks quite dodgy to me. This is looking down one of the ammunition shafts, I believe. Ammunition shaft number 1. I don't feel like the lighting's right, but this guy's head looks rather clipped as well. It might be legit. Some of these shadows also look quite dodgy. I won't pick each one apart. And Min and I had a bit of a go at recreating shadows because I just didn't feel like they looked right. And of course these dog tags are making shadows, but they're not actually catching any light there, which is a bit odd. Look at that. If looks could kill. He doesn't look real happy about what he's doing. And yep, they're drilling stuff out. Again, I don't think the shadows look right, but I cannot rightly confirm or deny. And this could be anywhere, really. They could be cutting out of limestone anywhere. It may not be actually at Leighton. Same again here. I kind of felt like there was shadows missing more than anything, and inconsistent sizes, and for some reason only the angry guy wants to look at the camera. I'll leave you the links to all of these if you want to look at them yourself. The brickwork were the ones that I was most interested in, and to me that brickwork looks like it could be new, but then it's inconsistently laid. We've got the English bond, is it English garden bond down here, and then it suddenly goes to regular stretcher bond up the top there, and that brickwork looks completely different, or different age to this. So as yet I haven't been to the tunnels, but now that I'm looking at the brickwork, I feel like I do have to go inside, even though I don't think I'm going to find anything much other than brickwork anomalies. Again, to me that brickwork, it may just be lighting, looks quite different age to this brickwork, and that looks very old. It doesn't look freshly laid to me. This one caught my eye because this then looks, I mean, that looks fresh. That doesn't. That looks very aged. But also they're laying right up to the limestone, and it's not even properly cut out. So I'm not sure why they would be laying bricks right up to, and then trying to cut around the bricks that they've just put in there. And the floor. So unless they put the floor in after they're finished, they must have put footings down for the brickwork. The floor doesn't look like freshly laid concrete. Maybe I'm clutching at straws. And I did think this one was very odd, with the framing. So they seem to be bricking past the framing. And I don't know what he's doing there. I'm assuming his hand is in some sort of hole. Again, I just don't think they look right. But, I mean, they definitely built something. They turned whatever was there into the battery. So, as far as construction images go, there's really just one that I want to dwell on. I did save the best till last. I'll leave you the link to this site if you want to take more of a look at it. There's plenty of other photos, but I just wanted to look at this one particular construction photo before I close it down. This one, developing the underground tunnels. Now, I don't know about you, but I always brick the walls up before I finish digging the floor out, don't you? Why would you be bricking anything while you're still digging the floor out? Moving on. So I did eventually take myself on the tour. It only took me a year, but all in divine timing, as you'll see in my next video. It's a weird automated tour, so I struggled to get photos as people milled around for the audio recording, and then the lights went out and you had to quickly shuffle off to the next area with the group or be left alone in the pitch blackness. Apart from a range of multiple brick types badly covered up, the different laying styles and the ages of the brickwork, the absolute high strangeness of some areas, the brick specials, the broad curved walls in some parts, all in English bond, and the awkward junctions between all of those different areas, I was able to draw a couple of conclusions. And strangely, they were backed up by a bricklayer that just happened to be on the same tour. I'd asked if he'd noticed the different brick types and the patterns, which he had, as a good tradie should. He lamented that English bond is the strongest brickwork in the world, as we know. I asked if he knew why there would be some parts in English bond and some in regular stretcher bond, and if he noticed that some of the bricks looked second-hand. His conclusion concurred with mine. They must have been laid at different times. Your Honour, the prosecution rests. Other weirdness would have been the unfinished escape tunnel, which on closer inspection showed red brick finished areas at the very far end. I'd love to know what else is down there. The long straight halls, mostly in English bond, felt like the space between buildings. And the magazine areas with the bricked roofs, they were the only areas with brick roofs. And both were different roof heights. Not a lot different, but definitely different. Possibly because the floors were added later. And they also looked very much like longer cut-off tunnels. Too small for regular railway tunnels, but exactly the same. Moving on. Okay folks, we're going to take a brief tour here over to another channel. When researching, I often check out Don Pugh's videos. The link will be in the comments box as always. Don is a wheelchair-bound former education professional and a YouTube veteran. He's always good for the official story and some great images. But in this particular instance, he has his friend and former Mosman Park resident, Peter Barrett, with him. I just want you to hear straight from the source what Peter has to say about Buckland Hill from growing up in the area. Also, if you do go on to check out Don's videos at all, note that this particular image, which is a bit of a clanger, is now showing up in the library images as a lime kiln near Perry Lakes, not Buckland Hill. Not sure if that was an error or if history is being changed as we speak, but we'll come back to this one at a later time. Over to Peter.
This spot here was always out of bounds. It was part of the Army Reserve here, and you had to break in to go and play there. But it was a fabulous playground for kids. There was it's riddled with tunnels and gun emplacements and general military sort of hardware. Great place for kids to play. That limestone cliff face you can see over there is full of all sorts of caves and tunnels, and a fantastic playground for us kids. One thing about this place, and all those houses you can see in front of us there, that was all part of the army land. They used to like test trucks and stuff there. But there's one thing about this whole area, it's absolutely infested with dugongs.
So from the battery, assuming he was sitting somewhere on the edge here, over to that ridge, we'll see what it looks like today. Largely buried. These two look busy. It's buried. And the best you can see, okay, so this is a close-up of the wall that he was just talking about in front of the reservoir there that he was looking at from the battery. There are some interesting looking holes in it. Looks like a whole lot of dirt has been pushed up against it. It also shows, so this is roughly where the obelisk and the lighthouse are now. So it definitely wasn't there back in the 70s. But if what he's saying is correct, that this wall is full of tunnels, they're going in under the reservoir. So this image gives us a date for the lighthouse anyway, or a rough date. So 1974. And wait, I'll give you the whole picture. That's what it looked like in 1974. So that's from the western end, looking at the reservoir. This would be roughly from east, looking back at the reservoir. I won't take too much time on these, but I've opened them, so you may as well look. This would be from the southern end. This is an interesting shape. So this is where the fertiliser works was, now gone. From the north. So this would be where the obelisk and the lighthouse are now, and the entrance to the river. And from the east again, by the look of it. Did I double up there? Moving on. I also managed to find out why that lighthouse looks so different, and it does only have basically the one light, but it does three colours. It's called a directional or sector light. So if you stray off course, you get red. If you stay on course, you get white. And if you drift off to the starboard side, you'll get green to direct you back. That's why it's completely different to a normal lighthouse. Okay, just looking closely at Google. Let me try and squeeze in. So, just up here, WA Foundation for Deaf. There we go. That was where we finished up in Cottesloe. We did look at something down here. Hang on, just so I don't misquote myself. It was the old cable station building that we looked at down there, which in hindsight now, thinking about if there was a tunnel that went under the highway, potentially the railway line, I wonder if this is where it went. But they don't know where it is anymore. Interesting story. So, being that this is such a huge part of Mosman Park, I'm going to skip Mosman Park for now and just look at it in a broader overview. But it's the quarries that have been throwing me for a loop. And here we have what turned out to be almost the entire thing, a quarry. We have golf courses. Some of the oral history of Mosman Park I listened to, which I won't go heavily into now. They talk about a pile of tailings, or a huge dump area of mining tailings that were apparently very toxic. So there was a whole lot of reparation works went on around this area before they built any of the housing that's in there now. And now in this part here is some beautiful housing, some very expensive and quality homes. And I do want to point out that it's interesting that they've quarried away so much limestone here. So while we're orienting ourselves, there were apparently river widening works. I haven't gone into them yet. I'll see when that comes up. I'm not going to try and pick the entire thing apart because I just have only so many hours in a day. But notice how square cut that is. Really, I mean, they look like two almost perfect right angles pointing south and pointing due east. And I think it's this part here. Yeah, Blackwall Reach. So this is some of the deepest part of the river along here, whereas this tends to be sort of beachier. This is all rock. I wonder if we can get a view of it. Ah, yes. Public toilet. I hope it doesn't drop me in the toilet. Okay, we're not going to get too good a view. I'm not sure if any of that was quarried or not. You're going to clear up any? Okay, maybe that's as clear as it's going to get. It's a rock wall anyway. At some point, hopefully, I'll get back down there in a boat and get a picture. There are people that jump off the rocks there, and it's been a very popular spot with yachties for a long time because the water is deep. It's a very quiet part of the river, and very tranquil. It's also a good place to sink a boat, apparently, if you are having some issues and need some insurance money, so I'm told recently. But anyway, back to this. The other thing I wanted to point out before I go any further as well, just because we're at an obelisk, I mapped these out. Can you see these are a few obelisks that I've mapped out. Not that. That one is. And to my surprise, they line up with, hello, come out, show yourself. This one at Woodman Point, I mean, that just doesn't look like anything other than a fun sculpture, but it's on top of an obelisk. That is in a direct line with the C.Y. O'Connor statue, which I'll discuss another day. So he's the man that suicided, C.Y. O'Connor, after he supposedly built our harbour and he built the water pipeline to Kalgoorlie. We'll save that for another day. So we've got this obelisk lines up with the Fremantle War Memorial with Mr. O'Connor right in the middle. And then we end up in a still perfect following this line. We end up at Buckland Hill. These are smaller obelisks. That one's at the, there's a small one there at Claremont Council. But they actually, now, if you live in this area anywhere and you know of an obelisk, let me know. Because that also lines up with, oh sorry, I couldn't put it right next to, it lines up with a bus stop next to an obelisk in Joondalup, which is about 30 kilometres north. Okay, so there we go. From Joondalup to Woodman Point, I've got 4 obelisks in that perfect line. Let me know if you know of any more in this area. Moving on. We'll just take a quick look at some images of the Mount Lyell Fertiliser works. Okay, I won't spend too much time on them, but that's obviously a panoramic view of it. Looking towards Fremantle would be down here, and some wonderful fake curvature there. So that's how it was. From slightly further east, looking back, we would have been up here somewhere before. Lots of railway lines on both sides. And as far as I can tell, the CSR works that we'll look at after are further down, further east. That must be a construction image. I don't know what else to say about that, other than this building looks a lot older. Oh, there we go. There's a construction image. That's something under construction. I'm assuming that's the end of the building that we were just looking at in the previous photo. It's a good idea that they've levelled all the ground first before they start building. Maybe they do that afterwards. Some nearby cottages. I'd like a closer look at those chimneys. They look a bit oldie-worldy to me. Again, same houses. What else can we tell? Come on. That's definitely an old world chimney. Big old veranda house. Probably not a lot else I can say about that. Couple more. Okay, look at that big ridge pictured there. So that's all been cut away? Or is that a natural land formation? What year was this? 1935, sorry folks, 1935. It is very close to the coast there, isn't it? This shape has always intrigued me, and we'll talk about that more next time, because apparently there's going to be more. And we're going to look at this area here, just to complete the picture. Same area again with that shallow bit in the river, and very close to the coast. Mount Lyell there. I'm not sure if this is meant to be the sugar works. CSR. That does look similar to the other pictures, but this is interesting and very, very white. Not even sure. To me, that looks like a model. That looks like something I made when I was studying drafting out of white cardboard. That seriously looks like a model to me. And this is a good one. Transporting superphosphate out of the, as it later became CSBP, Cummings Smith and Mount Lyell Farmers Fertiliser Limited. This is a little bit mud floody, isn't it? They've got buildings all up here, but looks like it would be pretty hard to get to them. This one looks quite old world. It's brick. It doesn't look very new. These doorways look very short too. I wonder if they're meant to be entered. They're not tall enough for these gentlemen. This one is also brick and looks very well buried. Wow. Look at that. And that looks like a bit of a ruin. What's going on up there? What's that? There's another one over there. What's going on there? Sorry about that. What's all that? Same up there. What is that? What a mess. Very interesting image. What year is that? 1930, circa 1930. Okay. And that's all I have for there. Okay, just a quick word on the CSR sugar refinery, sometimes known as Cottesloe Sugar Refinery, sometimes known as Colonial Sugar Refinery. That will turn up a lot in other countries, I'm pretty sure, Colonial Sugar Refinery. This is, what year was that? Sorry, 1985, so probably shortly before they demolished it. That's what it looked like. It's all painted reddish. There's definitely red brick in there. So we'll do a quick tour. Got this one from above. Very hard to tell anything, and it's black and white. I'd be interested in a closer look of those houses and the chimneys especially, but I can't find any images of them. The construction photos are quite interesting. I'm just going to point out a few anomalies that would indicate they're forgeries. So this does look like old world brickwork. This guy is transparent, so you can see the scenery through him. So he's just phasing in and out. The bricks look more like second hand than new. There's some very broken edges there, and they look like they've either been leaching a lot or they've been previously painted. What else can I tell you? Not much from that one. Big old ladder lean. There's railway tracks everywhere. Some of them look like they were quite substantial, and some of them look like they were just tossed on the ground. Mostly rubble in that one. This one I found quite interesting. This is definitely brick, this wall, and these bricks up here are all pitted and damaged. So for a construction image, I'm not sure why the bricks would be so badly damaged. And then down the bottom here, this is covered. There's a strange arch shape there. Again, semi-invisible people. He's supposed to be moving. Is this exactly the same guy? This is brick over here on the other side of this building. And it doesn't look particularly like new brickwork. Nothing else there. Here. So this doesn't look like new brickwork. There's lots of piles of rocks around too. So I'm not sure how they factor into the construction, or if they should have just gotten rid of them. These signs look a little too obvious for me, but it's this back here that I'm looking at. This is definitely old world brickwork, and that looks quite large, an entrance. The same with the bricklaying style, has got the header courses running through it. So was that English bond, did I say before? Visible people. Not much I can say about this one, I don't think. Again, the railway tracks just kind of suddenly stop, and they're all over the place. This little building back here does look like an oldie world little train station building. I've seen a few like that in photos. and then the platform would run from each side. That was the aerial image we looked at. Built in the late 1920s. This would be it, finished in 1930. I was trying to look for evidence of the superphosphate factory. I believe it should be behind this one, and that would be looking back towards the coast, towards North Fremantle and the beach there. That's a good image of it. Very high up off the water level. The railway lines leading in. 1930. That was that wall I said looked damaged. Pity about the negatives. You wonder why they don't take better care of these things. And the only real confirmation of was it old world or not was these photos from the 50s of the supposed refurbishment of the office. This looks like a steel staircase. Ironwork. And these windows above the doors are extremely common in old world buildings. These highlight windows. So to me, if you just showed me the inside of this building and said date it, I would have said, I bet it's a mud flooder. Same windows, same cross beams you often see in the ceiling. And ghosts by the look of it. Just back at Fremantle stuff for a moment. I nearly didn't include this because I didn't really think it was relevant. I was kind of thinking along the lines of just more obfuscation and another way to move the land around and damage it and destroy it. But then I started thinking about the battery, not just any kind of energy, human energy. So race courses and things pop up all the time, and stadiums, etc. If we're looking at energy, this was a major event that happened there every year, and as you can tell by the number of people, it was fairly well populated. So regarded by many as the toughest course in Australia, the Harley Scramble. So first introduced in 1928 and continued on until the 60s, I believe, somewhere down here, 1964. They stopped hosting it. When you think about events like this, there's a lot of energy. I'm currently working in events. There's a lot of energy that goes into organising events, not just what happens there on the day. So, on the battery, another energy source. Okay, and one more thing before I wrap up. This is an image of the first train of railway carriages built in Western Australia, leaving the workshops of the builders, the Western Australian Ironworks in Rocky Bay in Fremantle in 1905. In none of my reading did I read anything about there being an ironworks or building train carriages, but let's take a look at the image. Just expand that for you. From the Batty Library, the first train carriages and a small child. Just one lonely child. So I found myself somehow on this site. I'm not even sure how I got here, but we will look at the document that came up. This thesis, which provided some interesting insights. So instead of going completely off track, I've gone underground and underwater a little bit here, folks. But indulge me the exercise because I'll just bring you the highlights. And again, not at all what I had planned, but I really think I need to look at this and it will help me finish off that area, look at North Fremantle and that very strange ridge there. Hope you enjoyed today. See you next time back at North Fremantle and the rest of this ongoing saga. Thanks for joining me. Bye, folks. Hello, it's me again. Did I go the long way around? Hello? Oh, my bus is coming. See ya.